Hello, and welcome to QuickBooks Desktop Edition training video about preferences in a QuickBooks company file. This training is brought to you by Accounting for Your Success, located in DeKalb, Illinois. The screen you see before you right now is the home page for QuickBooks 2011 Accountants Edition. What you see in your QuickBooks company might be different depending on which year and edition you are using and the nature of the business for which you are doing accounting work. There are a number of processes that QuickBooks performs based on information you have recorded in the system. Many of those are stored in the Preferences section, which are set up as part of the overall administrative setup for a company file. In order to look at preferences and possibly edit them as needed, go to the top of the screen, click on Edit, and then click on Preferences. You will see that preferences are grouped into different categories. You will also see that there are two different kinds of preferences, one for My Preferences, which is for individual user IDs when you have more than one user ID set up, and Company Preferences, which is the basic how QuickBooks is going to do things based on how you told it to do. Company Preferences can only be modified with a user with administrative rights, which is usually the admin user ID. Any user can go into My Preferences and make changes. For example, with accounting preferences, when you go to company preferences, you can tell QuickBooks that you want to use account numbers and that you require that an account number be entered for every transaction that gets processed. If you get to something that you're not quite sure you understand it, you can go over to the help screen, click on search, type in lowest sub-account, and you can see that there are different topics available through the embedded help screens. Read this. If this makes sense, it'll help you decide whether or not you want to make any preference changes or not. If you don't understand everything that's here or there's more information you need, you can check the support site for more information. Obviously you must need internet access in order to get there, and you go to a user community at the Intuit websites, and hopefully there'll be more explanation available. On company preferences for accounting, you can also see that here you can tell QuickBooks you want it to use class tracking. Class tracking is used to separate lines of business or different types of business that you have going on within the same company based on different kinds of customers, different kind of services you provide, different products, etc., etc. You can also tell QuickBooks to prompt to assign classes. You can tell QuickBooks that you want to automatically assign the general ledger account number. This one in particular, warn when posting a transaction to retained earnings, is important. That box should always be checked. Retained earnings is a calculation that QuickBooks uses to determine your net profit for a period of time. And normally there are no manual adjustments to retained earnings. So if you're writing a manual journal entry or you're trying to process a purchase order or an invoice to retained earnings, you want a warning because basically you don't want to do that. The next section here is warnings about transactions that are either very old or in the future. And you can change these dates to whatever you want. QuickBooks defaults to 90 days in the past, or you can change that to 30 days, you can change that to 360, and of course if you haven't checked this box, you're not going to see the warning anyway. And the reason to have the warnings available is in case you made any date changes and you're just getting back into normal processing. This is just a way to make sure that you really want to post that transaction from 4 months ago. One other thing in here in the accounting preferences is setting a closing date, the date through which the books are closed. You can set a date, and normally that'll be the end of your fiscal year after you've done your tax returns. This is a sample company and it's set to December of 2015. That's why you set that here, or you can see that here. You can set the date, enter a password, so anytime somebody wants to process a transaction into a closed year or prior to that closing date, that user would have to enter the password. It's also good practice to use the confirm password as well, just to make sure that you get everything the way you want it to be. Going back here, you can see that there are no personal preferences for personal preferences. There are no my preferences for bills and a few other things here. And there are company preferences for bills, but there are no company preferences for things like spelling. Every user gets to set their default, and it defaults here. So that's one of the things you're going to see there. One thing to remember about changing preferences is that they do not usually change history. There is no effective date to go back and make this change effective. So if you recorded transactions without class tracking, for example, and now you tell QuickBooks to start tracking classes, that will not put classes into all your historical transactions. As you can see, the preference sections was set up in QuickBooks to control how software does certain things on a routine basis. You should verify what your preference settings are and make sure that QuickBooks is performing the way you want it to. You can also try the help screens, as we saw before, to get more information about a setting that you don't understand. And one last thing, if you plan on making any large number of changes to your preferences, you should do a backup of your company file by going up here to File. You have to close out of this section first. Go up here and create a backup and go through the process there. The reason to create a backup is if you make a lot of changes to how QuickBooks processes things and then start processing and realize you don't like it, you can always go back and start over again, remembering that any transactions you entered in the after the preferences were changed section will have to be re-entered. This training was brought to you by Accounting for Your Success. We are located in DeKalb, Illinois. If you have other areas of QuickBooks that you would be interested in getting more information in, please contact us. You can find us at accountingforyoursuccess.com. Thank you.